instructional designer and technologist at Coastal Alabama Community College in Bay Minette. We hit all the campuses, Gulf Shores, Fairhope, Thomasville, and Monroeville. And I'm brand new. I just started about a month ago. So I haven't worked with Canvas since I was working on it in about 2018, so I'm spinning back up. I'm sure a lot's changed since then. You probably will see me stutter step on some of the things that we do. But really, the backbone of what I want to do in the next 35 minutes is show you, because we've had a lot of things, that, and as I was preparing the presentation, I was thinking, this is for the Canvas user group, and I was just, while I was preparing the presentation, I was just talking about prompt engineering, but you guys have heard a lot of noise about prompt engineering. So I wanted to show you prompt engineering into Canvas. We're gonna actually put some stuff into Canvas, and I'll show you different ways. We'll use Markdown, which is just text, so it goes in nice and clean, right? Because that's one of the issues. We know it's backed by web code, HTML code, so putting in, sometimes if you put in rich text, it can go awry. And then we'll also we'll grab our branding using the HTML inside the Canvas editor there, and then we'll take that content that we've produced it using prompt engineering and put it into our blueprint format. Does that make sense? Before we get there,
I think it just like times out.
that was my machine. I need to do that. Before we get there, we talked about it. We're going to talk about, sometimes to understand the present issue, you have to go back to the past. So we're going to talk a little bit about tech implementation. And we'll talk about guardrails and what those are, and the guardrails that we need, because we need, I think, a higher standard of guardrails as the stewards of the young minds. You know, their privacy is very important, and it becomes more and more important. We want to make sure that we're not putting in personal identifiable information into open source models that can be out there that they can learn from, and then hallucinate that information. I put some information about my colleague in because, and I was producing a Notebook LM audio to help me get prepared for this presentation. Ann Strickland is my supervisor in the Center for Teaching and Learning at Coastal Alabama Community College, and I put some information about her in, and when it was going through teaching me about using AI prompts, it said, a book by Ann Strickland on prompt engineering. You know, so Notebook LM can hallucinate. And
buy it on Amazon today.
That's, so maybe it was seeing the future and not hallucinating. That's coming, attraction. So we'll go through all those. Let me just make sure. And then, okay, hopefully you can walk away with some prompts that you can start with. But please shoot me an email if you like, because I'll shoot you back a ChatGPT email, and I'll do it in like 30 seconds. But I will put in the prompt. I will put in the prompt, so it's still, I'm stewarding it. I mean, come on. So let's get started. So one of the big issues in curriculum and curriculum design and instructional design is the blank page, because the blank page is very expensive. You spend a lot of time staring at the blank page, and we just don't have to anymore. We don't have to anymore. We can see the Notebook LM going and getting 10 sites, and it's only taking 10 seconds or whatever because it has to generate it onto the screen, but it's actually producing it in nanoseconds, right? It can get these sites for us, and we don't have to curate those anymore. So that's one of the big things. We definitely need to speed up the time. We need to get those accurate, open educational resources. And of course, we want to keep consistency as we build through our different modules. That's the big thing that we use at Coastal Alabama Community College. We have this blueprint. We want our modules to look a certain way. And as you walk through this, we walk through some of the practical steps that you'll see down below, you'll be designing based on the blueprint that you use at your school and be able to create a consistent flow, regardless of whether or not you're using Copilot, which I do recommend. Let me pull back for a second. By a show of hands, how many folks use AI, or have used AI? How many folks use AI every day? Okay, so a few hands went down. How many folks use AI every hour? How many folks don't stop using AI? I really do. You do as well? This is a term, I heard somebody say this, it's my default workspace. And what that means is like, M365 is our default workspace, isn't it? Outlook, Teams, whatever. So, but what was that?
I thought it was my best friend.
It is. And
It's my administrative assistant.
Administrative
I
assistant.
mean, it's my everything, but it's also my
It's
pick-me.
my everything. You're like Jerry Maguire. You had me at ChatGPT. And this is the thing. M365 will never be your everything. It'll never be your best friend. But this thing, it does gush. It does, as one of my colleagues talked about earlier, it provides chipper responses and esprit de corps. And I think those are valuable. Sometimes you have a bad morning. You're talking to your ChatGPT, you're just trying to get it to create a module, and you're like, this isn't working, right? Has anybody ever done that with some of the output? Okay. And it's like, slow down. One time, mine prompted me this summer, it's like, Ryan, maybe you should get up and have a sandwich.
Do you need a Snickers?
Yeah.
You're not being yourself.
I mean, it's strange, and Emily and I were talking about this idea that a machine is actually teaching me to be a better communicator, which is very meta and very weird, but
Scary.
Yeah, it's scary.
Scary, but like awesome.
We realized that the output, and it's got this consistent patience with your silly questions. And I love that, and realizing that, the silly questions that our students can ask, that they're not really silly questions, but they're shy to ask in class. We're still shy. We're all grown-ups, we're professionals, we're smart, we've been doing this for years, but we still won't ask that question even in a classroom setting like this, right? We may not ask that question, but we will ask it of ChatGPT. And if the model gushes too much, because I do believe that it is a little gushy, use perplexity.ai. That's one of the things that I'll get into if I get past this first slide, is the different tools that I use. Perplexity is a little more objective. It's maybe more business oriented, okay? And if you do have a question, because I cover a lot of material and I'm going to move as fast as my pre-workout drink will allow me to move, please throw a hand up or just comment, okay? Again, open forum like Emily said. I like that, okay? All right, so this is what, I love this. I got into technology. I was teaching out in Saudi Arabia, and they had every shiny new technology that you can imagine. And it was 2015, and one of the, and I was just teaching English, just oral English, reading, writing, and a little bit of technology, English, some Newton's three laws and things like that, laws of motions. And I couldn't understand, I was doing a lot of presentations and working with their LMS, I think it was Blackboard, and I just couldn't understand some of the things that they were saying. And they're like, well, just let me do it for you. And I'm like, no, I want to learn how to do it. How hard can it be? And that's one of the reasons why I got into technology. So as an instructional designer, and I was an instructor for at least 20 years before that. I was a military instructor, then when I left the Army, I became an English instructor and I taught all over the world. So I understand it more from an instructor's point of view than a technologist's point of view. I didn't get my first mobile phone until, I think it was, I guess it would have been 2014. And that I got my laptop at the same time. I was one of those people, and I have lots of books, right? Still, I was one of those people that I'm never gonna read a book on Kindle. That's like sacrilege, right? I like doing little annotations. So I do understand the resistance to technology, because I was very resistant. The only thing I used the mobile phone when I got it for was a flashlight. I didn't want people to text me. But anyways, so if we look at, and as that was happening, I I was looking at the research. I love history. If you go back in time and you look at the resistance, and you guys remember it, we've all been there. We've been flowing with this since the 80s, but it goes way back further than that. We saw the resistance to PCs, but let's go back thousands of years. Socrates, and to a technology called writing. Socrates was against writing. He said it led to intellectual laziness. He said that young minds would rot. He said that real wisdom didn't exist on scrolls. You had to have it. It had to be oral. It had to be within dialogues, and that writing was tantamount to the TikTok of 400 BC. Okay. Happily, his best student, Plato, I probably never told Socrates, right? Socrates took the hemlock and passed on, and then Plato's like, I'm glad I wrote down Socrates' writing. So his best student didn't even listen to him, and writing stayed around, right? So fast forward to the 15th century. The 15th century, Gutenberg. Come on back. Okay, Gutenberg, the printing press, mass media. Okay, all these cheap books, the intellectuals were outraged. The philosophers, priests, it's no longer the purview of simple, of monks and intellectuals. Now everybody can read. So now knowledge will be cheapened. Thinking as we know it is over, right? Okay, if everybody can read, it's not for don't throw your pearls before swine. Okay, jump forward to the 18th century, the 19th century, which is the 1800s. The Victorian era. In the Victorian era, novels were attacked. Novels were believed, one of the sources that I found quoted that, especially for the young, and especially for women, as the Victorian era is known for attacking women, that young women would swoon and neglect their domestic responsibilities, the domestic duties, because of novels, because it would cause people to not be able to distinguish between reality and fiction. So the novel, it's hard to think of it, the novel as a new thing, but it was a new technology in the Victorian era. Fast forward to the 80s. PCs come into classroom. Now students are going to use typing to create their essays, and they're not going to do it by hand. And we've read the research. Using your hand to write, analog writing actually interacts with more neurons than typing, because this does 8 different movements. I don't know how accurate that is, and oftentimes when we do research, we find what we're looking for, right? It could be a confirmation bias. At any rate, the PC, now if you can't use a PC these days, right? At first it was a scandal, it's the end of thinking, and now it's an essential skill. Next thing, laptops. Laptops, if students sit in class with their laptops, and your supervisor will tell you to close your laptop, but if you sit in class with a laptop, you're going to be surfing the web, you're not going to use that for notes. And the notes, the hard, mind mapping that you're doing with notes, and I still do analog notes, but that's going to be the end of thinking as we know it. And then tablets, or cell phones, and then tablets. Cell phones are going to be, attention spans are going to go away, right? And I watched it with VR, and I actually built a little tiny VR company, which is an interaction. So we're taking, what is the real purpose of education, or these different tools? Knowledge transfer, right? We're trying to get the knowledge closer to the brain. It was books, it was oral, and apologies, okay? So each new technology is a scandal, then it becomes an essential skill. Okay, move on from that. The brilliant thing about this new technology, as we talked about in the last one, is it teaches you how to use itself. No more engineer verbiage documentation. Sometimes you go to the documentation for a new tool and it's just completely indecipherable because some engineer who built the thing wrote it and he doesn't speak normal human English. Or user's manuals. We want to throw those away anyways, right? Get a new barbecue. Go ahead.
But if you have a user's manual, if you don't know what is there, you don't know what to look for. If you have a user's manual, everything is there.
Absolutely.
So if you don't have that, then using